Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Dave Chappelle is doing his hometown summer shows again. Dave Chappelle's Summer Camp is a summer tradition. It's back for its 5th year. He'll do 3 summer weekends at the Wirrig Pavilion, weekend of July 2nd, 3rd, and 5th, so no show on the 4th, and then August 14, 15, 16, and August 21, 22, 23. The Hollywood Reporter put Chappelle and Mo Amer together for a conversation. Dave says of Mo, "We spent all the summer of 2020 together doing shows. The best comedians in the world flew into Ohio, and we had a blast." Mo recalls it was so nerve-wracking because everything was so unsettling. It was COVID, it was civil unrest, it was my own personal stuff, and every one of my writers was juggling things emotionally. It was really overwhelming. But you, Dave, really saved my life. I'm sure that a lot of people felt that way because we weren't working. You gave us an outlet. So the story here, Mo was invited to participate in Actors on Actors, and he suggested speaking with Dave Chappelle. Chappelle said, "As you know, I notoriously don't like to do press, but I wouldn't have missed today because it's you." So Dave flew from Ohio to L.A. and said, "There's an elephant in the room. You got a deal at Netflix to produce a show." And then Riser starting production on season 2, October 7th happened. And this is something that you're going to have to address artistically or not. And I was curious about what's the process of going through that. By some weird accident, you found yourself being a solo Palestinian voice in a very critical time in human history. Mo explained, "I started writing season 2 in April of 23. Then the Writers Guild went on strike. We came back in October. 6 days later, all hell breaks loose, and particularly in my writing room, since the show centered around a Palestinian family, it impacted it significantly. It caused us to have a tremendous amount of debate in the writing room itself." Chappelle was curious where the pressure comes from. Family, friends, bosses? Mo said, "More so from the fans and the public. Since I'm the only guy that's Palestinian, it was a show that centered around the Palestinian family. The pressure around that was immense. There were so many phone calls and people pressuring me to speak right away, literally October 8th. I noticed everybody was yelling at each other. No one was actually listening to one another, and I think it's really important to understand what's happening before you speak out. It's really necessary to know what you're talking about. I've always seen my art form as a refuge, where it allows me to be myself and express myself. Outside of that, it feels unnatural to me at the moment." And a long conversation there along those lines. While we're solving peace in the Middle East here on Daily Comedy News, Theo has also addressed Palestine. On his podcast, he called it a genocide. There's a clip going viral. It's from the May 10th episode of this past weekend. In it, Theo says, "Feels to me like it's a genocide that's happening while we're alive. You see all these photos of people, just children, women, people, body parts, just putting their kids back together. I just can't believe we're watching that and that more isn't said about it." I didn't set out today to wade into any of this as I put the show together. And you can check the back catalog. Whoever the biggest comedian is, that's who gets the first story. So when I went into the Chappelle thing and saw that Theo, who's pretty big and would have been in the 3 spot today, was on the same subject, I put those 2 back to back. Had Theo spoken about something else, the number 2 story would have been this whole John Mulaney thing. Now, I had pointed out on this show, I'm getting up on my soapbox and doing the, "Hey, Johnny Mac told you, I'm doing it. Hey, remember I told you this?" Remember a couple weeks ago, Robbie Praw, the head of Netflix comedy, was like, "Yeah, Mulaney, yeah," but like never said it was actually coming back. Then last week, Mulaney was on Mark Maron's podcast and, said, "Oh, we're working things out." Late Nighter poked at this. Robbie Praw told Late Nighter, Robbie, again, is head of Netflix comedy, "Every Wednesday for the last 12 weeks has been my favorite Wednesday. I think John is absolutely brilliant." That's nice. My ex-girlfriend from college has nice hair. That's it. She's nice hair. So Late Nighter didn't accept that dodge and asked, "Hey, we going to get any more of this show?" Robbie Praw says, "I have nothing to elaborate on at this time," which is not, "Yeah, we're working on season 2 right now," or, "Yeah, 12 more episodes come out October 24th," or, "Yeah, we're working it out. John's touring this summer. We're just trying to figure out the dates." You could have said any of that, but Praw said, quote, "I have nothing to elaborate on at this time." Praw also points out Mulaney is an extremely, extremely busy man. It sounds like everybody has figured out that show didn't work, my opinion, and they're laying the groundwork to everyone get out gracefully. I could see a future in which it's like, working with John was great, but he's got this 16-month tour coming up and he's got 2 young children and he's in a lot of demand and he might host some award show. But, we love him here at Netflix and we always have the door open for an upcoming, that kind of spin. That's coming. What's incredible to me about John is how quickly we saw the evolution of the show to put on a program that feels different from show 1 to show 12 in the old world of late night. That would be, 2.5 weeks? I can't really envision who else could pull that off the way John did. Well, that's not really a fair comparison. You can't compare 12 weekday shows to 12 weeks. You have to compare 12 weeks to 12 weeks. Because if you're doing a daily show, like, all right, we're done taping at 6:30 and we have to get to work and we have 23 hours to put out another show, not 167 hours to put out another show. So that's not a fair comparison at all. Robbie Praw, who I've worked with back at Just for Laughs and is a good guy. More from Praw via Late Nighter, which is a great website. I mean, we're calling it late night, but it's on streaming, so it's available all the time. So to me, it really seems like a hybrid. It's a talk show. Part of it feels SNL-y. No, it doesn't. I mean, he wrestled 14-year-olds. That feels Andy Kaufman-y. Yes. He did the height bit the night Letterman was on. That felt Letterman-y. Yes, it did. The fact that he was out there doing these 10 to 12-minute, not topical monologues and that they're strong as they are is something most folks don't understand. The level of difference and specialness you have to achieve that. Sure, but I will tell you this. Give Jay Leno a week to come up with 12 minutes. He'll do it. But he did a show 5 days a week. And let's not pretend people don't have writers. Praw says the idea of producing the show live around the world wasn't necessarily a strategy to differentiate the show. To be honest, I don't think it's the thing that makes the show great personally. It's certainly exciting that it's live in the moment, but it really stands out as a great variety hour either way. That's how a lot of our members engage with it. You may recall Jimmy Kimmel Live was called Jimmy Kimmel Live because Jimmy Kimmel was, say it with me, live. The Hollywood Reporter caught up with Seth Meyers, who somehow has been hosting late night for 11 years now without really having any impact on society. They were curious, Seth, do you have a sense for what differentiates your show? Seth says, one thing I love hearing, as I'll come backstage for first-time guests and they'll say, everybody tells me this will be really fun, and that's great. The feedback, I think, is people like doing the show because they feel like it's a conversation. We don't ask a ton of them, it's just come and talk. It's a loose, good vibe. Host isn't in a suit. We have a nice green room. Well, I mean, if that alone isn't a reason to watch the show, they have a nice green room. It says, the one thing I was most wrong about is I thought politicians would be more interesting. I think it's very interesting to talk about politics. It's less interesting to talk to politicians. And we built a show where if the conversation's good, it's good TV, and it almost doesn't matter who it's with. Honestly, I think it's better to have a good conversation with an author than a bad conversation with an A-list star. With that said, does it have more value if you have a good conversation with George Clooney? Of course. But if we realize there's someone who's a giant star who's maybe better at being a giant star than they are being a talk show guest, that's great. We don't need to chase that person. Ian Carmel spoke to GQ about his weight loss and said, you know what the big difference for me was? I joined a gym I can walk to. The whole idea of getting in the car and finding parking, and in LA often paying for parking, I took away as many hurdles as I could. There's a gym that's like a 25-minute walk for me. Perfect. It's podcast time. Maybe he listens to this podcast. Hi, Ian. I also drink so much water because the other thing I feel with cravings is you have to try telling them no in as many ways as you can. Throw whatever you can at them. I'm probably like a 3 to 4 apples a day guy. Doctors would tell you to keep it to 2, but listen, it's that or lasagna. So I'm doing the apples, and I love blueberries. For me, that's a top-tier berry. I think it's the most consistently good. I don't think it's the best berry at its best, but it's the best berry on average. Forgot to mention earlier, Seth's doing a lot of press, and why? I don't know why he's doing so much press. Conan's doing a lot of press, too. And Eliza Schlesinger's doing a lot of press. I've noticed that. Apropos of nothing, just thought I'd share. Doing a comedy podcast, and these things come to mind when I put the show together. At the ATX TV Festival in Austin, Brett Goldstein talked about his early collaboration with Scrubs creator Bill Lawrence. That was a project called Spaced Out. Also in that, Donald Faison from Scrubs. It was basically a space-themed workplace sitcom. Brett Goldstein said, it was my second pilot season in LA. I'd gone and done a pilot for HBO the year before that was really good, but didn't get picked up. And then I came back and auditioned for Bill's new show. I love Bill because of Scrubs, and I was excited it had Donald in it. The show was about a working-class genius trying to integrate with a team of scientists building a Mars rocket. Goldstein said it was basically Scrubs set in a rocket factory. We called it Space Turk. Lawrence said it was not called Space Turk. It was canceled. Brett says the thing that's awful about making TV is we all felt on the set the pilot was really special. This is a thing. So much that when Bill's producing partner Jeff said goodbye to me, because you do the pilot and then you start shooting the rest of the season in August, he said to me, see you in August. So I started packing up my house. I sold my place in England. Oh no. And then a month later, it's not happening. I was like, where do I live? Yeah, don't do that. That was a rookie mistake there, Brett Goldstein. Years later, Bill Lawrence calls him about this show called Ted Lasso. He called me completely out of the blue, and he said, I'm going to do this football show. You want to come write on it? And I said, no, I've got a big stand-up show booked. He said, it starts next week. And I was like, but I've got these stand-up shows. Brett spoke to comedian Nish Kumar, who told him, cancel the show. Goldstein had another concern. He had developed a show, Soulmates, for AMC. The Soulmates got picked up, and I was like, F. Bill Lawrence said. He was running Soulmates, and we hired him as a writer on Lasso. He didn't know he was also going to be Roy Kent. But that was all Brett. We were writing the part. He filmed an audition on his own. He sent it to us, and he absolutely killed it. Yeah, we've heard that story before where he just asked, hey, can I just be Roy Kent? And they said, yeah. That's how I started hosting the show on Live One, the weekly comedy thing. By the way, I should plug that. New episodes every Monday. It's kind of like this, except I talk a lot less, but I can also play comedy clips from comedians because of licensing and all that. So that's the weekly comedy thing on Live One. So when we were putting that show together, I was inspired by Phil Collins from Genesis. I've gone sideways here. Let me back you up. So Peter Gabriel, musician Peter Gabriel, you've heard of him? He was the original singer for the band Genesis, and then he left, and Genesis was looking for singers, and they auditioned a bunch of people. And then one day, Phil Collins, who you've heard of, said, can I just do it? And they were like, yeah, sure. So we were auditioning people for the weekly comedy thing, and I was writing it, but no one was quite nailing the voice, and I eventually said, well, can I do it? And I totally had Phil Collins stuck in my head for that, and they were like, sure. So I started hosting that, and then I had all these extra stories left over, and I'm like, I got to do something with these stories. So I created this podcast, and here we are. And like anything else in life, I've been talking into a microphone almost every day for, 11, 12 years now, and you get better at things. So thank you for listening. I digress, but that was the end of the Brett Goldstein story. Oh, I definitely want to stop off at Gossip Corner before we go. Page 6 reported that Jeff Garlin was scheduled to headline a comedy dinner at the Calabasas Country Club in SoCal last week. However, he allegedly walked out after discovering he'd be paid by check. Garland was reportedly promised, listen to this number, $800 in cash, and was unhappy to learn that the venue intended to compensate him with a check instead. Let's just stop off there. So say you were on Curb Your Enthusiasm for 11 years, and you're going to headline a comedy dinner. How much do you think you would get paid? Apparently the number is $800. Wow. An insider told the Post the crowd was ticked. Most of them come to see Jeff. Approximately 40 people attended the show. According to Calabasas Country Club's schedule, they frequently host events such as comedy nights and bingo. The Post says it's unclear why Garland walked out. A different source informed Page 6 that he likely didn't walk out due to financial reasons. They said Jeff can be a very neurotic guy and get hung up on things. So who knows? I think I have it in my brain somewhere. I feel like when I was at SiriusXM, I feel like we were talking with Jeff about maybe perhaps doing something. I may have, and again, I might just be making up this whole thing. I feel like I was on a call with Jeff, and I have it filed away in my brain that sometimes you jump on calls with people, and you can tell people really want to do something, and then we'll figure out the money later. And then sometimes you're on a call with someone and you feel like, oh, they think we have a lot of money because Howard Stern reportedly makes $100 million. So let me do a show on Sirius so I can make money. And it's more about the money than the idea. And I have it filed away that this conversation with Garland that I might just be imagining, but I think it happened. If I'm remembering correctly, I think I left that call going, oh, this is in column B. That this is just like, hey, I heard this is a thing. When podcasting heated up a few years back, oh boy, a lot of people reached out. Yeah, I'd like to do a podcast. All right, what do you want to do? I don't know, whatever you guys think. And it was like, you just want to be paid. Anyway, that's your comedy news for today. See you tomorrow.